Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raising some hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun.
There we go. So we're going with that now. Amzie, for you, what happened when we get ready to go on the actual podcast? This right now is for YouTube, and we're going to start talking a little bit. What would you say? Off the cuff. And Facebook Live is rolling right now, so everybody on Facebook Live, I'm monitoring any comments people are watching. But I think they're excited to get the information on Bourbon on the Banks, and once we start the podcast, there's just a 30-second spot that I'll be able to hear in my headphones that we just have to, not talk. And then once that goes, I'll play some music. And then once the music's done, it's actually our theme song. Kenny Fuller, who's with Luca Mariano, he did our Scotchy Bourbon Boys theme song, which is pretty exciting because it actually makes us sound professional. It's way more professional than our podcast, but at the same time, he does that, and then we're ready to go, and we'll get into all the details. Do you guys have anything for me? I mean, is there any rules?
Rules?
Well,
I'm just checking out your room. I see Spider-Man, and I just can't.
Yep.
My dog might too.
That's okay.
Sorry.
But I'm really the poster behind there, which was Bourbon and Cigars. That was play in Springfield at Mother Stewart's Brewery. They had an event, and we were invited to be a part of that. So our name is on the actual poster, and that poster was kind of a cool poster. And that's one, when you have certain things that work out that when people plan things and you're not a part of it, and then it's really cool. I mean, we ended up, believe it or not, I don't know why, but I ended up signing like 25 of those posters along with my co-podcasters, and it was just kind of, we were signed it, and they put them up for charity, and I would like to know how much money they made.
Let the dogs out, so no more of that. Sorry about that.
Dogs, we're dog friendly here. So if they were one of our he moved to South, his name was Young Nose on the podcast, and he moved to South Carolina. So he podcasts with me on Saturday morning, once a month on Saturday mornings, and he has 2 cats, and they like to make appearances. We're definitely animal friendly. So it's kind of moving along. Do you want to get started with, I'm going to check, no comments yet, a lot of people watching, but if you want, I'll start the podcast, and then we'll just go right into the question answer, and then anything. I mean, I'm pretty new to, I've not been to Bourbon on the Banks. Now I've heard, I believe Rene and Diane, I think I heard you on the Bourbon Road in the past, and was it kind of excited? I listened to the Bourbon, I've listened to Michael J. Hyatt while I cut the grass. It's just one of the things I do. I hop on my rider mower and listen to him and listen to his podcast, their podcast. And I believe it was last year you did the podcast, and it was exciting to hear about. We actually are part of Kentucky Bourbon Festival, where we go down there and podcast directly from it, and it's something that we actually spend the whole week. We spend the whole week there, and so in the past, that's a lot of time off. But this year, when I was down with Amzie in Louisville for the Alan Bishop experience. He convinced me, even though I was thinking of going anyways, because it is a Saturday. I don't have to, that's not a time off thing, and you guys are close enough. I'll leave early in the morning and get there. Now, we should go over what the Friday is, because it sounds like Friday is a pretty fun day. I'll have questions for it afterwards. So let's get started. I'm going to play the spot. Just hit this right here, and we'll go from there.
Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.
This is Alan Bishop, head alchemist at Spirits of French Lick. Be on the lookout for a brand new bottled and bond Solomon Scott rye whiskey. Made from a mash composed of 65% rye, 35% corn, and 5% victory malt. This 5-year-old 100 proof rye whiskey is a throwback to early 1800s style rye whiskeys of the Ohio Valley. Named after the legendary Daisy Spring Mill distillery owner turned moonshiner Solomon Scott of Paoli, Indiana. Remember, drink responsibly and never drink and drive.
Drinking bourbon, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild, but it's sure fun to watch. We love what we do, we're drinking every brew. Man, we talk some shit, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raising some hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun, yeah.
All right, welcome to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tonight is a special episode or podcast. Very excited. We have Diane Strong, Amzie Wenning, and Rene True of Bourbon on the Banks. And this is an exciting thing because Amzie has convinced me to go down there and experience everything that Bourbon on the Banks is. And I have all of you guys via Zoom, which is very exciting. And then also Facebook Live, we're going to look for comments and just different questions if they're out there. But at the same time, this is, I always do that. It's like, I got to turn that down. But at the same time, tonight, the answers for Bourbon on the Banks, I mean, you guys, between all three of you, this should be an ultimate promotion of everything that Bourbon on the Banks is. It's pretty exciting. I mean, so who wants to go first on exactly where it is?
I think that's a Diane thing. She's the director of the festival. She's does an awesome job. So Diane, you need to kick it off.
Well, I mean, it's all downtown Frankfurt, of course. The Friday night events, they're focused truly downtown on Broadway and at the History Center. And then all throughout the restaurants and bars that are there. So we've got the VIP event. That's a very limited ticket event. It's a VIP reception and bourbon auction. It's going to be at the Kentucky History Center again. And we've got a great lineup this year. We're focusing on women in the industry. So we've got Ariel John, Lori Karsich coming from, I gotta move this so I can read this, from Smooth Country, Ashley Barnes, co-founder and master blender. And then Jane Bowie from Maker's Mark, the director of innovation. Jen Brandt, master blender at Luca Mariano, which you had mentioned that you've got a little connection there as well.
She's awesome.
Joyce Netherly. Yeah, she's Joyce Netherly, the master distiller over at Jephthah Creed, which is right down the road. Victoria Beatty Butler from Uncle Nearest. She's the master blender, award-winning. Peggy No Stevens, the master taster and author. Super excited about her. Susan Rigler, who is also an amazing author, whiskey writer and educator. And then we just got confirmation that Marianne Eves is going to be joining us as well. So we're super excited.
Yeah, up here in Ohio, we have a little connection through Watershed off of what she did there. And I actually have that bottle and it's fantastic. She is a very talented blender.
Absolutely. And I got to mention that Freddie's going to be joining us from Buffalo Trace as well. He's going to be sampling some bourbon and his root beer. So he's a local celebrity here. I mean, I think he's a worldwide celebrity, but we are super honored to have him at that event.
Well, if you could put a word in for me, because I actually had last November Harlan Wheatley on the podcast, and then I was supposed to be able to get Freddie on, and I was working on it, but then the restrictions eased up and he was so busy he wasn't able to come onto the podcast. But it's the first time I ever went down in 2019 before Buffalo Trace did any of the renovating. Right before that, we were there for the Ghost Tour, and I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But Freddie actually was when we went in, he led the tasting for us. So it's kind of like, I wish I would have been educated enough to know who was doing it at the time. I was, after I realized what happened about, 3-4 months later, I was just kicking myself. So I would love to meet him personally. That's for sure.
Well, you're not alone in that. I think I did several tours where he hosted my family and and before I was into bourbon at all, and I had no idea what kind of celebrity I was around there. He's amazing. He's hard to get these days. I mean, he's very popular. Yes,
there's no doubt, but I hope to, when I come down, just at least be able to shake his hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've got a lot of really great bottles to auction off, and Rene might want to elaborate on some of that.
Sure. If you want to get into that. So the Friday night VIP event, Tiny, has always been revolved around a rare and collectible bourbon auction. So Buffalo Trace is the linchpin of the donations that we get. So we've collected some bottles from them. I'm not going to list everything we're going to have. But beyond Buffalo Trace, we also cater to local charities. And if local charities have been given bottles or donated bottles and they want to get rid of them, we use this auction platform to do that. We take 20% of the proceeds. I don't get a dime. Diane doesn't get a dime. Amzie doesn't get a dime. But 20% of proceeds go to Downtown Frankfort, Inc. And then the charity gets 80%. So if there's any charities out there that want to put a bottle in the auction and they want to have their bottles in front of bourbon enthusiasts from across the country, let us know, get our email address, check out Bourbon on the Banks online and send Diane any email. But anyway, so we're going to have a George Stagg, Stagg Jr., Elmer T. Lee. We got a couple of 1792 full proofs. We have E.H. Taylor barrel proof. We have a Weller single barrel. We have a full proof, Weller 12 year. We're supposed to be getting, there you go, I finished, Tiny. I finished my bottle from Friend of the Trace, and I've got 2 more bottles, but I'm hanging on to them for a little while. Actually, one of them's half gone too. So that foolproof is awesome.
Yes, it
We
is.
got a Willett Family Estate single barrel, and the Granddaddy auction item, which supports a local charity called Yes Arts, is an E.H. Taylor barrel pick experience. Oh yeah, so about
that'll
7.
that'll do well.
That-
There's
yeah,
not very many of those.
no. So you and 6 or 7 of your best friends come down to Frankfort, Kentucky, and go with the barrel select manager and sip some whiskey, and a couple of months later you get it bottled and take it home, and you get to keep the barrel.
That actually got my adrenaline flowing right there. I mean, that seriously, you're offering something, that very few people have been able to do. That is wonderful that Buffalo Trace says, let that, that would be on the same level is that in like 5-6 years that what the E.H. Taylor they're making in the the arc where they rediscovered the fermenters, and they basically are using the same corn, and then they're going to make a batch of what he made in the 1800s, and then release that, where if you're lucky enough to get a bottle of that, that'll be amazing. But yeah,
That'd be nice.
maybe that'll be something that they'll put up for auction at Bourbon on the Banks in the future.
I'll tell you what, that would blow the doors off. You're talking about the Pompeii
Yep.
that they found. So yeah,
It's just amazing when you go there on that tour and you get to actually that Colonel E.H. Taylor tour, and you get to see what they unearthed and then to see it working is just another, it's like it being in another dimension. That's something, it just takes you back to when. And then you talk about the corn strain, they analyzed the corn strain, they were able to grow it and then utilize that. I mean, it's bourbon is an exciting history experience, beyond anything else, because it's always been so much a part of the United States and then also Europe. So, all right.
well, we're excited about it. So we hope everybody will go online and buy tickets to VIP event. And of course, there'll be other things there besides the auction, and I'll let Diane cover that. But if you listeners have any questions, they send some emails or whatever, or through the Facebook Messenger, we'll try to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that takes place from 5 to 8 on Friday. And during that Friday night happenings that's going on, we've got a free event that's for everybody. It's a very kid-friendly event, but it also is a great time for adults. It's called Bourbon Street on Broadway. We have a kid zone up on the old Capitol with tons of free things for kids. And then we've got food trucks and stuff. We've got live EDM music going on there. We've got fire performances, and we've got aerial acts. We've got walking giants. We've got human statues. I've actually got 2 human statues this year. Jugglers, street performers. It's really, really fun. It's way different than anything I've ever seen around this area of Kentucky. And so usually when people go, they're really surprised that can happen here. And it's going to be better this year. Every year I pick up a couple more performers that I'm excited to introduce to Frankfort. So you got to check that out. That goes from 6 until 10:30. And then while that's happening, we also have the Ingram River Aged pub stroll that's taking place. So you basically stop into the participating restaurants and bars and have one of their little signature drinks that are made with O.H. Ingram, and take a little selfie and tag it. And then you have a chance to win tickets to next year's event. It's kind of fun. And Hank Ingram's going to be walking around with the crew, handing out some swag and interacting with people as well. So that'll be really fun.
You're making me sad. I'm coming down on Saturday.
Yeah, you definitely want to show up on Friday. It's a good time.
Well, I would agree. The only reason why this year's a little bit, I probably will in the future definitely be attending both nights and spending time. My wife had some, she had her thyroid removed, so I've been taking in, she's recovering from that. So, you know, there's an aspect of taking it easy and not leaving her alone. So we'll see how that goes. But definitely, that is something, that I mean, I was seeing for whatever reason, it must have been on Facebook today that you were posting a lot of the promotion for Friday night, and that is exciting. I mean, it's for the families coming down into, you know, downtown Frankfurt and just enjoying themselves. That's for sure. So then that gets into the actual Saturday events. I mean, now on Saturday, what time does everything get started?
We start really early getting ready for it. I'll tell you that right now. But the actual event starts at 1 p.m. But that's only for people who have an early access ticket. Those are officially sold out and have been for quite a little while now. But general admission starts at 2 p.m. and that'll go until 6. You have access to over 50 distilleries. We also have some wineries and some different liqueurs that are there, some breweries. When you walk in, you basically get a wristband that says you're old enough to drink, you're not a designated driver, that you paid for your ticket, and you'll have access. You'll get a sample glass too. Matter of fact, I've got one right here. Can't hardly see it, but thank you, Liquor Barn, for helping us with those. And you'll get to sample all of those. You obviously probably shouldn't sample all of them, but you have, people ask me all the time, how many tickets do I get? Or you really do get to sample as much. I've never had a complaint that you didn't get enough samples, but obviously we're not going to serve you if you can't walk or you look to be completely inebriated. But yeah, and we have lots of food. We've got musicians lined up along the river. It's right along the river there. It's gorgeous. It's a nice long event. You can take a break, get some dinner. We've got a great lineup of food trucks and food vendors, dessert vendors, lots of lounges this year. And then you can go have some more samples.
So explain the lounges, so you've got the 50 different distilleries, correct? That's what it is. Now, in the past, it's kind of like the space, because it's along the river, just keeps running and running. I mean, you haven't filled it all the way to fill the whole park, right? I understand. Or is the park completely filled?
Well, my logistics guy's working on that right now. I mean, it may be a larger footprint than last year. We haven't had to go beyond the parking lot yet, but the space is going to be, I mean, we definitely have more distillers. We've got more merchandise vendors. We don't allow a lot of merchandise vendors, but they are very specific bourbon related vendors with a little bit of everything from, you know, stuff made from the bourbon barrels to bourbon barbecue sauce to, you know, smoke your bourbons. But they're all bourbon related. They're all very different. Last year, I think we had 10, and we had requests on our surveys to have more. So I think we're sitting at 18 right now. So, you know, if your wife or your husband doesn't want to sip all the bourbons, they can go shopping, which is always fun.
Well, and that part of the market just keeps getting bigger and bigger. There's more and more people, and they do it better and better. I mean, some of the stuff that you see out there, what they're doing, like taking a barrel and turning it into a fire pit. You see some almost professional type stuff where the gas fire is right built in, and then you'll see Matt Bay of Old Man Bay Signs. He makes those signs that for everybody. I mean, that he's an exceptional making sign maker from bourbon related. You know, anything bourbon related, he's going to put the sign on. So there's lots of different, what would you say? But then you get into the bourbon candies, and you get into the bourbon. I mean, there's almost bourbon everything now. I'm trying to think. My wife just had something she mentioned, oh, it was bourbon smoked Gouda.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm
That
telling
sounds
you,
good.
if you eat the ethanol on that cheese is insane. It's just kind of like, I like smoked Gouda, and then now it's got bourbon ethanol on attached. So there's so much that people do with the bourbon barrels or finishing barrels, you know, honey, bourbon finished honey, bourbon finished maple syrup. I mean, there's just so many different things that 5 years ago there it wasn't even close to what it is now. And then also you could see my Scotchy Bourbon Boys stave back there, which is similar to Rene.
I've got one up there.
Yep.
Somewhere up there.
So I mean, there's just so much that's available, and that's part of the festival. But then talk about the podcasters that come down. I mean, you've got people podcasting from there, but then you also have other people that are promoting their podcasts. I mean, it just seems like there's an environment that is unique to what Bourbon on the Banks is.
Well, we definitely love our social media partners. You know, it's Bourbon Night, Sarah and Chad, they've been with us since our very first year. And of course they'll be back, and they draw in so many fans, and we just love that. And then we've got the Basement Rick House, you know, they're coming back this year. They're here in Frankfurt, and they've been just phenomenal when it comes to helping us promote and do trivia nights. You know, you see them collaborating with a lot of the stuff that we do on Instagram and Facebook. We've got the Bourbon Road, you know, you've already talked about Mike, the Bourbon Badass, and all. He's awesome, and he will have a lounge set up. You know, you get to go in the lounge, and if you wear his t-shirt, you get a special sample, and he's got all kinds of stuff coming. So the roadies will definitely come and enjoy that place. He's got by far the biggest tent that I know of. Now the Whiskey and Whitetails is coming this year. This is a first year for them, and they're setting up a pretty decent sized little lounge as well. I know that they are going to have a live podcast and do some interviews. They had talked about having someone from the White Oak Initiative there, which is great because that's one of our beneficiaries. So we're excited about having them back, or having them this year. We do have media passes. So we have a couple of writers and podcasters and stuff who are coming just to experience the event and talk about it. Yep, you're one of them. So yeah, I mean, that is the world. We embrace our social media partners because we know that when it comes to earned media and you know, getting the word out about the event and getting genuine bourbon lovers, I mean, you're our people. You're our direct connection.
Well, as a podcaster, you just love the festivals. I mean, I'm at the point where I understand what I'm setting up as. It's very unique. I'm at the point in my life where I still need my full-time job, so I do the podcast. So I have two full-time jobs. I mean, the podcast has turned into at least 30 to 40 hours a week that I'm putting into, plus my 50 hours a week at my regular job. So there's a lot going on all the time. I work for my cousins, so they're very gracious to let me sometimes do some of the podcasting type stuff, you know, the connecting and scheduling while I'm at work, as long as I keep up with running the recycling plant that I manage. But at the same time, I'm getting to the point where when I initially started this, well, I'll set it up and get it going, and then when I retire, I've got something to do full time and that I love, because we're talking about bourbon and festivals. I mean, there's so many festivals right now. I mean, you got the New Orleans Festival, Whiskey Festival, and then you've got there's one in Galena. I know Martin Duffy, who is the Glencairn glass representative, who sells in North America, who sells all the Glencairn glasses to all the different distilleries, and he basically posts like 75 whiskey festivals across the world. And he's like, you need to come to Scotland. And so I'm getting excited about doing that because we are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, but we are heavy because we are in Ohio and close to Kentucky. So we are definitely excited about, you know, what happens in Kentucky, because still to this day, what Kentucky makes as far as bourbon. I mean, I understand you can make bourbon anywhere in the United States, but Kentucky has its own, as you know, with Frankfurt, the river that you're on. I mean, that now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the river that Buffalo Trace is on also, or is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it runs by, and now are you before Buffalo Trace or after Buffalo Trace?
Well, it's
Before.
according to where you start.
Well, we're upriver, just slightly
Yeah.
above the lock.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
If
So
the-
I mean, it's the even the river that you're on is history. So I mean, there's so much involved. And what's really cool about Bourbon in the Banks, and now what year are you guys in for the festival?
Officially, this is our third year, 4 if you count the pandemic, but we had to cancel.
Right. But you had it set up and everything, so people kind of knew about it. But what think about that in history. You've set up a festival that is in right by one of the most historic distilleries, with all the distilleries in, I mean, when you're talking 50, there's a lot of distilleries. You know, you're covering most of the Kentucky distilleries, and you're putting history. I mean, it's going to be talked about. Now, I also, in my other world, was a computer artist, and then also a commercial artist, but I did fine arts, and then also was trained through school in fine art, you know, as far as regular painting, and then I combined digital painting with regular painting. So when it comes to history and documenting things, before I got completely into bourbon, I kind of understood what art meant to the world. And it's the same thing. I mean, I'm thinking when I'm down there, I would love to get a premiere captured moment on the, you know, of the festival, and then do a painting of it. So those are kind of things, then it's documented in things in the photography and everything. You guys are going down in history because this is the time period. In 100 years, people will be looking like we look back at 100 years ago, but because it's bourbon, it's documented, and it's just I'm excited about coming down and seeing what you guys are doing. So what happens that day? I mean, people are walking around, but what kind of do you have anything as far as organization for the Saturday of what's going on?
There's no scheduled performances or anything like that. You just meander and take it in as you will. We have a lot of bourbon societies that are participating this year. They'll all do something interactive. A lot of them will have a lounge. When we did our surveys, a lot of people said there's just not enough places to sit down for this long of an event. So many of our bourbon societies are bringing a lounge. Like I said, the social media partners are bringing lounges. We've got a cigar lounge that's going to be there. So lots of you know, interactive stuff that's going on. That's one of the things when people want to be a part of our event, I say you need to provide something to the attendees, something for them to do, to learn, to involve, you know.
No, yeah, interact with the people. That's definite. Anytime I go out, that's one thing I love, is I love to talk to the different, it doesn't matter what part of bourbon you're talking to, whether it's the distillers that are making it, the people who are drinking it, the event organizers. One thing that's in common with them all is not just the love of bourbon or whiskey, but also they're down to earth, hard-working people. It's kind of like, even though history's writing itself, even some of the larger distilleries, like when you meet Freddie No and Fred No, they know they're not kind of like, oh, I'm Fred or I'm Freddie. No, they're people that are in an industry working similar to, not much different than my father-in-law, who was a rock crusher plant manager and then salesperson. You know, they even acknowledge all the people that they work for. And it's the same thing throughout. You get into your craft distillers and you get in and you just see that down home family work ethic throughout the industry. And so far, I've just, the people that it's hard to find somebody who's not somebody you want to hang out with or be friends with in this industry. You just keep running into the people over and over, and you just keep finding more and more people. And one of the things I found that's a little bit difficult is the more people I meet, I'm making so many friends that now that we're getting a little bit bigger, it's kind of like trying to organize the time to be able to be with this section of friends in this section, because there's so many. So, I mean, it's just such a wonderful industry to be a part of.
You know, Jeff, that's one thing I want to bring up is I think when you're talking about events and interaction here on Saturday, it is, you know what, we've got some of the big distilleries. We also have a ton of craft distilleries. And, you know, I think you're a person that appreciates that. And I love to be able to go somewhere like that and try these distilleries that I haven't been to. I haven't tried their product. And a lot of those, you're going to have probably the distiller there at the booth. And you have a chance to talk to them and ask them, hey, why did you do this? How did you do this? And they are usually more than happy to sit there and tell you about their product and what they're doing. And I think that's something that kind of, also the atmosphere at Bourbon on the Banks, being kind of stretched out in this beautiful setting on this beautiful park on the Kentucky River, is that there is a little bit more of a casual feel to it. You don't feel rushed, you're not crowded. And you know, so sometimes they've got a few people there pouring samples, and you ask them a good question and you're going to kind of step to the side and talk to them for a little bit. And that's one of my favorite things, I think, about Bourbon on the Banks.
Yeah, I mean, meeting, like you said, you meet the people, and then you have, now it's unique. So as I keep going forward, as you know, with the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, what I love, and it's something that's unique for myself and the people that are part of us. Just so you know, Super Nash, Martin Nash, who's part of our podcasting team from time to time, just says he wants to come with us too. So I might need 3 media passes.
Can you work that in?
Yeah, because he's going to come up from South Carolina, but I'll let you know if he was serious. He was just like, I have to come up. So you guys convince another person to come. But like you said, to be able to talk to the people, but when it's so unique now, being in the podcasting industry, how wonderful it is. I just mentioned that we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, and they just want to share so much of what they're doing, you know, when you're talking about the distilleries and all the different things. And it's great to be able to go to a distillery. Royce and Rebecca Neely from Neely Family Distillery, or you walk in there and all distillers, you know, Alan Bishop from the Spirit of French Lick, when you're talking to them, not only are they working on the stuff that they're getting to the general public, but they have all these unique projects that's always going on. And when you get to meet distillers, like at the level that you can meet them on Bourbon on the Banks, you can set up a friendship that when you come into the distillery and they know you, they're going to share they'll share some of that, because that's just what whiskey is. And, you know, even, you know, the distillers, they're looking at it like they're distilling all this, and they have to do what, you know, the product and the marketing, but they also love to share the experience of being a part of what bourbon means. I mean, we always talk about it means good friends, good times, and, you know, that's what bourbon is. And it's not, going out and there's an aspect of it going out and partying and getting drunk or whatever. But what bourbon has evolved into now, and what everybody loves, even the younger generation, is relaxation and spending good times with friends. And that's a really cool thing. And I think you're offering, like what you said, that little extra experience that you can walk up to a distiller and some of the smaller distillers and some of the larger, and meet the people who are making the bourbon.
Right. And
The other
we've
thing I think,
go ahead, sorry.
well, I was going to say, the other thing I think too is, it is easy to go to find the big mass produced bourbon, and those places make some wonderful stuff. But some of these are harder to find, and then also the fact that they're different. A lot of our, anybody who's ever done a blind tasting, I think will learn that it's hard to pick out. Oh, well, I like this Heaven Hill product. I like this Beam product, this Buffalo Trace product. And in a blind tasting, suddenly your palate's not as good as you thought it was. And for the most part, Kentucky bourbon is a pretty uniform product. And one of the things in your all's name, the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, if you think about Scotch and the variation in Scotch, a Highland Scotch, an Ela Scotch, whatever, they are drastically different. So why does all whiskey or all bourbon have to taste the same? And I think that's where a lot of our craft distillers are kind of pushing some of those boundaries, using different techniques, using different grains, using heirloom grains, using different yeasts, barrels and everything else. And so a place like this is a wonderful way to just kind of expand your horizons with what's out there in distilling. And I can't talk enough about that. We're lucky in Frankfurt. We're close to a lot of big distilleries. We're very familiar with them. We see the master distiller at Lowe's or at Qdoba getting a burrito or something like that, but to see what else is out there, I think is very, very valuable. But the other thing here is that we've got a lot of friends that, hey, maybe don't like bourbon, and they can come here and try some wine, try some beer, or whatever else, which is something that's nice too. It's not really a one-dimensional event, but we have a lot of other things for people to try.
Especially, that's a really good dynamic, like you said, for spouses. So let's just say, plus food, you got food, you've got, and the different shopping things, or, that you've got going there as far as related to bourbon. But at the same time, if you have beer and wine also, that if somebody loves bourbon and your spouse is like a wine person, it makes sense. It's you've got it covered so that the bourbon aficionado or the average bourbon drinker can come down, and there's something for everyone. So that's definitely,
and we'll also have other distilled spirits. A lot of these craft distillers are making vodka, gin, rum, the various liqueurs and things like that. So
okay.
Hey, and the spot we're at on the river, you're literally 2 or 3 blocks from downtown Frankfurt, and there are 6, 7, or 8 bourbon bars or restaurants that have a significant collection of bourbon and other spirits, and of course restaurants as well. So, when you get done and you want to head somewhere else, Diane, you need to talk about the after party too. Let's not forget that. But there's opportunities to go get lunch somewhere and come back and join the festivities, because the event is running 4 or 5 hours this year.
It's 5 hours total.
5 hours total. So if you want to go get lunch somewhere and then come back, you could. But again, we have the food court there, right? I don't want to take anything away from them, but there's a lot of bourbon centric businesses in downtown Frankfurt.
Well, and then also all the distilleries are open, correct? It's not like they're closing down and participating. If you want to go to anything in the area, you're within Buffalo Trace, Wild Turkey, Woodford Reserve, Four Roses. Just all those distilleries, if you want to, there's no doubt you could participate and then head off.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, it just went. Oh, Amzie. So when I'm down there, you're gonna have to pick the gin that we're gonna sit on the river, kick back, and then we're gonna sip and think about how awesome it is drinking gin on the river in Frankfort, Kentucky.
My wheels are already turning. I just got to see. I'm trying to think of who's going to be there with gin. There will probably be some really good ones. Castle and Key, Limestone Branch, Yellowstone. They have a really good gin. And we'll just have to see who else shows up. Yeah, we may have to do a little taste test before we decide the
Is Rabbit Hole going to be
which one that's going to be.
Limoncello. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I don't
go.
think that would be- yeah.
If you got 50, I mean, I can't. Who's okay? How about this? Who's not? Has anybody? Has anybody pulled out?
That's a tough question.
That's the only one. I mean, that's what. There's two, maybe 1, 2, 3 that maybe didn't. Whatever. But I mean,
Well, we signed it, as all three of us are members of the board, and we signed an NDA that we can't disclose who's not going to be there.
Right. That's the greatest podcast answer ever.
Well, Jeff, and something else I think where you can help, and when you are visiting another distillery somewhere, you have someone on the podcast, make sure they know about Bourbon on the Banks.
Absolutely.
Some of our other mutual friends have been very helpful at getting me in touch with some of the other distilleries that we've invited. And so definitely keep that in mind. I think you'll be a much better salesman for us once you come to the festival this year and see how great it is. You'll want to invite everybody.
And we're not, I was going to say, we're not, limited to Kentucky distilleries. So we've
No,
got
not at all.
Indiana, Tennessee,
Texas.
Texas.
New-
Yeah.
Is French Lick going to be there?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Jeff, that's actually how I first met Alan. So Alan Bishop and I, the distiller or the head alchemist at Spirits of French Lick, we had connected on Facebook, and the first time I met him in person was actually at Bourbon on the Banks. We've of course become good friends. That's how we actually met each other, was through Alan. And like I said, it's a great time to come meet people, talk to these distillers and find some new things that you're going to love. You didn't know you would.
Did you convince Bo to come down and do some videography?
Unfortunately, Bo is already had a vacation planned, but he said he already has the first Saturday in October marked on his calendar for next year.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, that's kind of, you actually saw pretty much the first time I met Alan and Jolie personally, because it's on the actual documentary. But at the same time, that's what the social media aspect. And granted, I mean, I'm already a fan of bourbon festivals because there's an aspect, like you said, of I haven't experienced Bourbon on the Banks. And when we were talking that night, I let you try and convince me way more than you needed to, because I had already put in my brain that I was coming down by myself. Now, since then, I was convinced my Xavier, our other podcasting, he wasn't able to make it because he was working tonight, but he basically is coming with me that Saturday. And then you've got Super Nash coming, that wanting to come too. But the festivals are so much of an experience, that unique experience, that I if once I stop working, I'm going to be at a lot of different festivals. And we've worked already. We have banners set up to go to festivals, table decorations. So we can do that. We don't have our own tent yet. And I guess once I'm down there and I'll have to work my ass off so that I can afford a lounge next year, so that there's a Scotchy Bourbon Boy lounge. Now, as far as the new laws, as far as whiskey selling? Are the distillers going to be able to sell the bottles from the festival, or have you guys not really gotten into that yet?
Yes, as long as you have a Kentucky distiller's license, you will be able to sell bottles at the event. If you don't have a Kentucky distiller's license, which none of our out-of-state distillers obviously don't, and some of our smaller guys don't, we have a local liquor store / wine bar here called Kentucky, or the Wine Cellar. They are going to have a tent at our event, and they will, as long as our distillers contact them, they will do their best to acquire their bottles and sell them out of their tent. So you taste something, you really like it, that product will be for sale right on site there.
So it'll be a bottle shop, kind of like a bottle shop with the outside vendors. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they'll definitely be sampling a lot of wines, and they'll probably have some wines for sale there as well.
Well, I find it so unique with the evolution of the changing of the laws. I mean, that's something. What was it, 3 years ago or 4 years ago? You couldn't even you couldn't even give samples at the tent outside of, and now then there was sampling, then you could actually carry the stuff around, and then now you can actually buy the bottles, you can sample the whole thing. I mean, it's just I think the festival experience has evolved in just the last 5 years into something that's amazing, that over the previous 25-30 years that all the festivals were going on, it was like having a festival with handcuffs on.
Yeah.
You can't sell it, or even the distilleries now being able to sell out of their distillery without that sell it, buy it back kind of thing going on. It just makes sense. I mean, who the consumer is benefiting, because as the taxes just kept piling up, from the price went up on the bottle. So every single distillery tour you went on, when you finally could buy some bottles a couple years ago, it's $10, $5, $6 more than what the retail price is, so now it's all kind of, I think Kentucky figured it out, and I think other states will figure it out as we go along. So how about naming? You can name a couple of non-Kentucky distilleries that are going to be there, correct?
Yeah.
There's no
No NDA on that.
non-disclosure on that, right?
So, Amzie, you probably have a bunch of them, but we mentioned some, French Lick, and then Lieber's Fork. I know it's going to be there.
Hotel
From
Tango.
Tennessee. Yeah, from Indiana, Hotel Tango, Spirits of French Lick, Hard Truth. They sure make a great rye whiskey.
Horse Soldier.
Horse Soldier.
Well,
Okay.
Horse Soldier
Florida.
is actually. Oh well, that's right. I think of their place in Kentucky.
Well,
Yeah,
they're
Lieber's
Kentucky,
Fork down south
Florida,
of
and
Nashville.
Ohio. But Penelope?
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Middle West.
Okay, out of Ohio.
Old Dominic. I'm going through the sheets right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, Penelope's coming. Jeez.
Great people.
Pritchard. Do you want me to go on? Sugarland. Uncle Nearest out of Tennessee. You gotta love Uncle Nearest. And then Woodinville out of Washington.
Have not had that yet. Everybody's been telling me I need to.
Well, you'll get a chance.
Yes, I.
You'll be busy. You're going to be working.
Yeah. So I should mention that the event is capped at 2,000 tickets. And 2,000 attendees. So that includes, our sponsors who get some free tickets and everything. So our tickets I'm really expecting them to sell out. But one thing that I will mention is, people talk about, I know like Mike, he's like, oh, we're going to get 10,000 people there. And we really don't want 10,000 people at Bourbon on the Banks. I think that's what makes it really special. You are kind of part of a very small group of people that get to go in and interact with the distillers and have those conversations. You're not going to wait in line for an hour to have a sample. We physically and logistically and, our infrastructure, we can't take on 10,000 people here in Frankfurt. So we're limited in that aspect, but we're also limited by what I'm willing to do, because I don't want to change. I don't want to compromise the integrity of this event by trying to make more money on tickets and have people who are unhappy and not returning. So, it really is a different kind of experience. I think, I don't think, this is ever going to be the Lollapalooza of bourbon festivals. You're not going to be picked up by the shoulders with people moving to the left and right,
Dare I say, Bourbon and Beyond. Okay, I said it. It's not going to be Bourbon and Beyond. So,
and that's fine for them. That's just that's what I think makes us a little bit different. And every bourbon festival has to have something that makes them special. So,
well, I'm just going through my current podcast series that I'm doing separate from my normal podcast with everybody I podcast with, is based off of what kind of whiskey drinker are you? And Bourbon and Beyond is that party that, that one kind of, and there's certain kind of bourbons for that, specifically, you're talking about a whiskey that's harsh, more kind of a party. You're talking about just Jim Beam white label. You're talking about Jack Daniels, and you're talking about like Rebel Yell 100. Those are party, and that's what that festival's for. Those people go there. They're watching live music. They're going around. It's normally a younger crowd, although what would you say, the bill of fare this year of the people singing,
it's amazing,
performing. Yeah, but at the same time, when one of your headliner is Pearl Jam, which I'm a Pearl Jam fan, but
I am too.
I'm the same age as Amzie. So my beard should be that color, but I make sure that it's not. But it's like, how many young people were, it's a party situation, but how many young people are like, I swear to God, there's people on this planet that are old enough to drink that are going to be like, Pearl who? Just that simple.
But see, Jeff, when your beard turns this color, though, then they'll step out of your way. They'll offer you a seat and some other things. So it's really got its benefits.
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't. I mean, I just go this way because I'm in denial as much as possible. When I lost my hair completely at 40, I mean, I just went for it at 40. I figured if I just kept all my hair off my body, nobody would be able to see the white, and I can just dye this little bit. So it's what I get a lot of enjoyment out of is they're like, how old are you? And it's like, I thought you were 45. And I'm just like, oh, thank you.
So something else that we're going to do this year for the first time, and we're sort of easing into this process, is we will have a barrel pick this year. We're just going to do one to start out, see how that goes. It's going to be a wilderness trail.
Macaulay.
Don't know what it's going to be yet. So I'm working on Macaulay, trying to get something as special as possible. The other thing is, who we've got selecting the barrel. We'll have Alan Bishop going, distiller there at Spirits of French Lick. Hunter Coffee, distiller at Three Boys here in Frankfurt. We'll have John Wadle, the single barrel curator at Peerless, going. We're going to have Kelly Tennille. So she is currently helping as one of the distillers at Three Boys, starting up a gin program for them. I was over there a couple weeks ago, tried some of it. It was great. Of course, she also was on Moonshiner's Master Distiller. Trying to think, I don't want to miss anyone on this.
Say that again. That was Kelly.
Yeah, Kelly Tennille.
Kelly, the one. Kelly, I know, right? I know.
Yep, you do.
Yes.
Another interesting thing there is that John Wadle and Corey Lane Welch, they also own Stave and Bean Coffee, barrel aged coffee, which will be at Bourbon on the Banks Festival, and we're going to be pushing it on time. But I hope as long as we can get that barrel dumped quick enough, they are actually going to age some coffee in it, and hopefully we'll have that in time where people can buy the coffee and the bourbon, mix them together at your discretion, and enjoy that.
And then also you could just do the coffee just to keep sobering yourself up the whole time. There's no doubt about that. But my question is on that barrel pick, is there, how much would it cost? I don't want to have any say so in the barrel pick. I just would like to be there. How much would that
Yeah.
cost me?
Hey, I don't even get to go on this thing.
I
You
know.
do.
I want to go too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't. A lot of places, and I think Wilderness Trail included, like, during COVID, they sort of shrunk the size of the groups that were allowed, and they really haven't expanded that back out yet.
Well, you're special because you're getting a barrel, and it's bourbon on the banks, so obviously it's gonna be bourbon. It's probably not gonna be rye. And I know that they're not doing a lot of bourbon barrel picks these days because the single barrel program, how much they're producing and their demand has really chomped into that. So that's that. I was able to do that with Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I went with Randy and Justin from Thompson that was Macaulay's awesome. That should be an amazing experience. And then you're talking about the people you're going with. That should, between just Hunter, Allen, and Macaulay all in one room. I mean, there's a sitcom in that.
Yeah, I think there is. Well, and don't get me wrong, I like rye. I know a few of them do. If they throw the right rye in front of us, could be a rye as well. So we'll see.
So yeah, a rye as well. There's and you know what? I think they will, because I know when we were there, they Justin asked, and we were able to taste a delicious rye, and he picked it, and so that should be a lot of fun. That was
something else. I was going to say, Jeff, something else I think we should throw in a plug for. You kind of mentioned it in passing earlier, was being at the screening for the Alan Bishop experience. So that's kind of a interesting documentary. So Rene, Diane, you all can watch that, know a little bit more what you're dealing with, and everyone else out there can, and maybe see a few characters in that. It's available on YouTube, I believe.
Pretty much it's on YouTube, but pretty much everybody he just talked about, Hunter, Kelly. I mean, you were talking, all were in the Alan Bishop experience, and it is an enlightening, really good documentary that I hope. Did you hear, what is it? Water of Life just premiered on not Amazon. Yeah, Amazon Prime. It's going to be on there, so people should check that out who have Amazon Prime. It's a very good whiskey documentary also. So it just promotes the everything whiskey, but so does the Alan Bishop experience. And if you look, I think you could see it right there. It's there. I got my little sticker back there. So. But that fact that French Lick's going to be there, and you have the Texas distilleries there. I mean, that's going to be. It's going to. Put it this way: as a podcaster, you keep trying to expand out. I've done a little bit into Japanese, a little bit into Irish, but when you're talking about bourbon, as I expand out, there's different distilleries that reach out to me. One of them is Last Shot, which is out of the very western part of New York. I'm not even going to try and say the name because I butchered it so bad on the podcast that I'm not. But Chef Yu there, he's a chef that decided he wanted to make. Amanda Bryant, who was also on Master Distiller, she works with him there. And they distill, bourbon and whiskey, and it's out of nowhere. She was like, "That's what I like," and he sent me all the lineup, and it's just. It used to be craft distillers, right? They were producing young and not so good whiskey because whoever was tasting it or whatever, they just didn't get it. But in this day and age, craft distilleries, you can't associate it with that anymore because they produce some of the best tasting different non-Kentucky bourbons or whiskeys, And it's just, when you think about it, some of them are more grain, there's an Indiana profile, there's an Ohio profile. They're all finding their place, but then there's also that, big, huge, giant place for Kentucky. And this is just, you guys, where you're located and everything, I think it's a perfect location. And this is actually you said the third year, but second actual.
This will actually be the third year of the festival.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then so that 4 years, but then this is the third actual festival that everybody attended. So I know this is good. It went a little bit longer, but what have you guys learned doing this? I mean, what have you learned that's making the festival better as you go along? I mean, every festival has to teach you something, and I mean, I can only imagine what the festival day is like. I mean, it's kind of like you do all the planning the day, and then when it's over, it has to be a big kind of what would you say, a relaxation let down to some extent. But it's kind of like, for you guys, it's almost like Christmas, right? It's like there's all the lead up and you're doing everything, and then it actually happens. And then, but what have you learned? What's the biggest thing you've learned from doing the festival, and this being your third year? I mean, that you've learned from the previous two and that you're putting into the festival now.
People want more food. They just always want more food.
That more food. We learned, going back to an earlier festival that you mentioned, and I'm not going to do that, mention them again, but our first festival, we had a lot of music and loud music, and it distracted from the experience. So we learned to have maybe acoustic and not a lot, turn the volume down so that the audience or the attendees can interact with some of the master distillers or the tasters at some of the booths. And I mean, that's just one thing, but Diane can go into more detail, but we send out a survey after each event, and we ask people about everything about the festival, and we pay attention, and we change the date based on input from last year.
Right.
So we listen.
We do. I had created surveys, not just for the attendees, but for my distilleries and my volunteers and the community. Because, it's not just one thing. If my distilleries aren't happy, they're not going to come back. And, if my volunteers aren't happy, I can't live without my volunteers. So, and the community, without our community, they support this event. The city provides the transportation. Our attendees are going to, get bus transport to all the different events, and it's our sponsors. It's a big deal, so we want to make sure everybody's happy. And I go back throughout the year and I read those surveys, and I when we have like the volunteer party, we take notes from the volunteers, and I keep reading and making sure that every step of the way we're fixing all of those issues. And at some point everybody's gonna be like, no, it was just perfect. Not. There's always room for improvement.
Wait a second, you're talking whiskey? There's no way anybody's gonna say. There's always people. For God's sakes, you have to make the general people happy, and then you have to take the people who are going to complain in stride. There's no doubt about it. But the thing that you did, the thing that you said about more food, that is a very important thing that I found at any whiskey festival. And that's basically, the more food you have, the soberer your crowd will stay. And then, like you said, loud music will just basically make people check out to drink whiskey and get drunk. So there's that aspect of what you were talking about. That's more of a relaxation atmosphere. It's about the vendors. It's not about whenever you get into that party, because we've done a lot of that being a part of the industry for the last 2.5 years. There's times where it just all of a sudden starts to go where you're around a lot of people. There's a lot of whiskey flowing. You can't really talk to them because the music's too loud. And before you know it, at the end of the night, you've learned that you don't want to drink that much. So, and especially if you guys, I always felt before I was totally into bourbon and into whiskey, that if I just stuck to whiskey, or if I just stuck to vodka in an evening, or if I just stuck to one spirit, I was okay. But now I find that I have to stick to one classification. If I start going out mixing classifications like Irish whiskey with bourbon, it's bad too. So there's a lot of different stuff that that happens. Now we're about to finish up. I'm going to play I'll play one more piece of music. But Amzie, the last thing I want to say is that we are coming down for the other festival. And that Tuesday before in September, which I believe is Tuesday, the 13th of September, I am trying to do a barrel pick with Alan at the Spirit of French Lick. And I invite you, if you can make it happen, to come up there.
I will be there
and be a part of it. So, that's one thing I just definitely want. It's going to be our pick. He assured me that if I have any trouble, that there's enough people that come down from Ohio. All he has to do is put it out to his people, and it's going to be gone. So,
yeah.
So
I'd say the Frankfurt Bourbon Society, where Rene and I both serve on the board there. We did a barrel pick at French Lick back in November. I would recommend you go ahead and plan an overnight there. We honestly, but because of Alan, we actually took 25 people on that barrel pick, and
Alan told me.
Yeah, we had a block of rooms reserved, and everyone had a wonderful time.
So what we're going to try and do is do that. And then, are you guys familiar with Amore in Indiana? It's the restaurant. It's run by Al. I'll butcher his last name, so I'm not going to say it. But he basically, Greg Schneider from Chicken Cock Whiskey. Is Chicken Cock going to be at the Bourbon on the Banks? No. Okay, that's one for next year.
Well, send me their contact and they'll squeeze them in.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell.
Oh, wait a minute! It's not too late for this year.
No,
Yeah.
we'll get them in there.
Like this year.
Well, I'll let Greg Schneider know, and also Tyler that you guys are interested, and see what they can do. Tyler Anderson is their marketing director, and then what I'd like to do, but he has found this restaurant with this chef, and so we're going to basically do the pick and then head over to the restaurant. And then we are staying, in Bardstown. So we've done this a couple times where we've went from French Lick into the most southern part of it. He's right outside of Louisville. And then he's like, as close. I don't ask me for directions and whatnot. Now, if my wife was here, she'd give you the directions. But at the same time, and then it's about I think it was only about a 50-minute drive back to and she's going to be the designated driver, so I got a designated driver there. So it should be a lot of fun, but you're invited and it should be a blast.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. One thing real quick is, did we talk about the after party?
No, and I wanted to mention that before we go, that we've got the Goodwood after party. So when the event is over, you can hop on a shuttle, or you can just walk on over to the street there, East Main Street in front of Goodwood. And we're actually going to have a live band this year. We've got Taylor Hughes, who is a Nashville recording artist, and Audra McLaughlin, who was on season 6 of The Voice. They're both great artists. They're going to get on the stage. They're going to sing, and we'll have some food out there. And it'll be a good way to either wind down or keep your party going. And I will say that if you are, we're working with Happy Trails this year, you're talking about a lot about drinking too much, and it can definitely happen at an event like this. And because we don't have really reliable Lyft and Uber here, we're working with Happy Trails, and you can pre-schedule your pickup and they will come and pick you up, or you can just call them on site. We have lots of transportation that'll take you back to your hotel. It's very reasonably priced. So just get on the website and bourbononthebanks.org and really poke around. We've got all kinds of information. We've got contact to get those rides scheduled. You can see maps. We've got historic walking tours with E.H. Taylor. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Make a weekend of it.
All right. So we had Eric Congertoon, who is out of Australia. He's
Nice.
He loves the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. He does different things, but he was like, he basically was, cheers guys, if only there were bourbon festivals here in Australia. So in Australia there are no bourbon festivals, but he likes bourbon. He's very interesting because what distilleries have to do to bourbon to get it to Australia. It's like barrel strength is not a thing there, and you're talking about 70 proof whiskeys there that, you know, I mean, it's that there's a lot of different rules and regulations, but he comes on all the time, and a lot of times it's 80, something that should be that we get here at 94, it's 80. I mean, they just, do a lot of different things over there. So he's a unique guy, and I wanted to say hi to him thanks for the comment. But okay, so anything to wrap up? I know there was the after party, but anything else that we didn't cover? Because I think we covered a lot, but if you have anything else, otherwise we'll get going.
If I have to, I will sneak in Super Nash if he's still watching.
All right, so if you have to, you'll sneak him in. All right, so
Yeah.
that sounds good.
We'll take care of him. We'll take care of him.
All right, man. It's great to meet you, see you, and I can't wait to meet you in person. So that should be a lot of fun. And the Scotchy Bourbon Boys look forward to coming down. And let me really quick get this ready to take us out. Let's see. There we go. All right, little Steve-O's taking us out. And thank you, everybody. This was
Thanks for having us.
Bourbon on the Banks. You guys were great. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to get there in October, and hopefully it's September 31st. Friday, September 31st is the stuff that starts and the auction, and then Saturday, October 1st is the festival, correct?
Yeah.
September
Yes.
30. We only got
September
30 days in September.
Yeah.
Thank you. She gave me the no, and it's just like,
And today.
You gotta count
that's
the
like the
knuckles.
no I get from my
Listen.
wife right there. She gives me the no, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, September 30th. So
Unless it's a leap year.
yes. Yeah, if you drink enough bourbon, it will be. So, all right, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for coming on. All right, and I was drinking the Weller Full Proof, and
I
what
saw
initially
that.
started with was I killed my bottle of Rare Breed, and that is he's got some Matty Gladden right there.
Well,
That's,
and this is actually the Frankfurt Bourbon Society pick, since we were talking about that. That's
Yeah,
what-
and I had Four Roses with
Restoration,
one
right?
of our founding members.
This is the
Omar
Bourbon
Marshall.
Society
There you
Barrel
go.
Pick
Yep.
Restoration Rye.
That's the pick. I actually picked up number 2 when I was down there of the rest.
I got number 1. Number 1.
I was more excited about their rye than their bourbon. I hope that their bourbon gets better.
Oh,
I think it will. I think a little more age. I think it'll be there.
Well, they are trying to get it going, and I saw that. Yes. That's another. Okay, so that was enough. So we need to go. So all right.
my phone's ready to die.
Remember,
Yeah.
we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, www.scotchybourbonboys.com for all things Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Check us out on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and it's not coming, but Twitter. Thank you. And also all major podcast formats, mainly Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple. Just remember, if you are listening to us, subscribe, listen, and leave feedback for us. That's very important. Remember, good bourbon equals good friends and good times, and go out there and live your life dangerously.
show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
All right, so I stopped recording. We're still on the YouTube. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That actually was a local artist. His name is Little Steve-O. He basically, I was initially doing the podcast and I used the Doors, Elektra Records, Jim Morrison. I like Jim Morrison and the Doors, and I like to, but basically anything that I did on YouTube, any kind of royalties or whatever would go straight to Elektra. So I asked him to do that for me. And so he basically did the 17 seconds of the cover of the Alabama song. The Doors, that is an actual cover song of a blues artist from like the 40s. So having him do it, he could do that. And now it doesn't have any restrictions or anything on YouTube. So that was really kind of cool that he did that for me. And it sounds like Jim Morrison. I mean, it's just crazy how well he did. So that's another aspect of what I love, is that I've got Kenny doing the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, theme song. I've got a local guy doing, things for me. And then also we are going to be doing a bus tour when we're down at Kentucky Bourbon Festival. And we've got it set up, and Bo Cumberland's coming along with his wife, Heather, and they're going to be shooting footage for that. So I just feel sometimes the people that I'm associated with are that much better, than what I'm actually doing. But,
Yeah, Rene and Diane, if you guys happen to watch that Alan Bishop Experience documentary, you'll see some of Bo's work. And like I said, he says next year he will be at the festival. He does great stuff. He really doesn't charge for any of it either. So look forward to having him come and do some videography next year.
I mean, it's like with the tour, it's averages to $230 per person. And I said to Bo, I was like, come on the tour with your wife and do some, shoot some footage. And he was like, cool with that. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, absolutely. I mean, how it's $460 and he's going to shoot all my YouTube footage and then give me a little, opening plus a little, 5-minute spot. I mean, how you can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'll stop recording on YouTube. Here we go. All right.
Drinking bourbon, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild, but it's sure fun to